Right now, in your head, you're hearing my voice as words, sentences, grammar. You're not even thinking about it. Your brain just automatically turns sound into meaning. That's insane if you actually stop and think about it. Because somewhere, at some point, none of that existed. No grammar, no words. Just a bunch of early humans making noises at each other and hoping for the best. So what did that sound like? Was it grunts? Was it more like singing? Did it even involve the mouth at all? Here's the uncomfortable part. Nobody actually knows. There's no audio, obviously, and language doesn't fossilize. You can't dig up a sentence. But that hasn't stopped scientists from trying to reconstruct it anyway, piecing it together from bones, gestures, baby babble, and one seriously bizarre French law that, no joke, banned an entire field of study for almost a century. Let's start with the bones, because that's actually where this story begins. In 1983, archaeologists working in Kibara Cave in Israel found a Neanderthal skeleton that was almost perfectly preserved, and buried in there was a tiny, fragile, horseshoe-shaped bone called the hyoid. Most skeletons don't even have one intact because it just floats in your throat, unattached to anything else, held in place by muscle. It's basically the anchor point for your tongue and voice box. When researchers compared this 60,000-year-old Neanderthal hyoid to a modern human one, they expected differences. They found almost none. Structurally, it was nearly identical to yours, which means Neanderthals, anatomically, had the hardware to produce complex speech sounds. That single bone rewrote the conversation. For decades, the assumption was that Neanderthals were grunting cavemen, incapable of real language. One 60,000-year-old throat bone said, actually, maybe not. But having the equipment and knowing how to use it are two different things. So let's go even further back. Around 7 million years ago, our ancestors split off from the line that became chimpanzees and bonobos. And here's the weird part. Chimps have almost the same vocal anatomy we do, but they can't talk. Not even a little. You can raise a chimp in a human household, around human speech, every single day, and it will never produce a real word. Researchers have tried. It just doesn't work. So clearly, it's not just about the throat, it's about the brain. And in 2001, scientists studying a British family with a severe speech disorder found something huge. Half the family members couldn't form grammatically correct sentences or properly control the muscles in their mouth for speech. When researchers dug into their DNA, they found a mutation in a single gene called FOXP2. This gene became famous overnight as the so-called language gene, though honestly, that nickname oversells it a bit, because it's not like flipping a switch that turns on language. It's more like one critical piece in a much bigger machine. But here's the twist that made headlines. When scientists later sequenced Neanderthal DNA, they found Neanderthals had the exact same version of FOXP2 that modern humans have, not a chimp version, the human one. So between the throat bone and the gene, you've got two separate lines of evidence, both pointing the same direction. Neanderthals very likely had some form of spoken language. We just have zero idea what it sounded like. Because again, no audio. Annoying, I know. So if we can't hear it, can we at least guess what the first words might have been? This is where it gets genuinely fun, because of one specific universal pattern. Say mama out loud. Now say papa. Now go check literally any language on earth. Mandarin, Swahili, Hindi, Finnish, doesn't matter, and you'll find something close to those same two sounds, meaning the same two things, mother and father. That's not a coincidence. And it's not because all languages share some secret common ancestor word for parent. It's because mama and papa are some of the easiest sounds a human mouth can physically make. Babies babble these sounds before they even understand what they mean, just by randomly moving their lips and tongue. Parents everywhere hear that sound, assume the baby is calling for them, and the word sticks. Every single culture independently landed on basically the same baby mouth sounds for the same concept. So if you're looking for the closest thing we have to a first word that's still floating around today, mama, is a genuinely strong contender. And it's been reinvented by every generation of babies for as long as humans have existed. Okay, so we've got some clues about the sounds. But what about the structure, the actual grammar? For that, we need to talk about a kid named Pablo Restrepo and a small group of Nicaraguan children who, completely by accident, built a brand new language from scratch in the 1980s. I'm not exaggerating. Before this point, deaf children in Nicaragua were largely isolated, scattered across families with no formal sign language to communicate with. In 1981, the government opened the country's first schools for deaf education. Suddenly, dozens of deaf kids who'd never had a shared language were put in classrooms together. The teachers tried to teach them Spanish through lip reading. It didn't really work, but on the playground, something else started happening. The kids began inventing their own gestures to talk to each other. Within a year or two, the older kids had built a rough, simple system. Basic, clunky, more like pointing and miming than real grammar. Then the younger kids showed up, and this is the part that blew linguists' minds. The younger children took that rough system and, without anyone teaching them, automatically added structure to it. Word order, grammar rules, ways to express time, tense, complex ideas. Things the older kids never invented. Linguist Judy Kegel studied this in the 90s and basically watched in real time the birth of a fully functioning language, complete with grammar, from nothing. No teacher designed it, no committee planned it out. Kids under the age of 10 built it instinctively, because apparently the human brain doesn't just learn grammar, it wants to invent it if none exists. That's wild. And it's basically the closest thing modern science has to watching language evolution happen live, on a playground, in real time. Which brings up the obvious question. If grammar shows up automatically, did the very first human language start as speech? Or did it start as gesture? This debate has actually been raging for over a century. And honestly, it got so heated in the 1800s that one organization just gave up and banned it. In 1866, the Linguistics Society of Paris, one of the most respected academic bodies in the world at the time, literally added a clause to its bylaws banning any papers on the origin of language. Their reasoning, basically, too many people keep submitting wild, unprovable theories, and we're sick of arguing about it. For almost 100 years, serious linguists mostly avoided the topic entirely because of one French committee's collective exhaustion. Imagine being so done with a debate that you just legally outlaw it. Incredible. But the gesture-first theory didn't die. It just went underground, and modern neuroscience actually gave it new life. In the 1990s, Italian researchers studying monkey brains discovered something called mirror neurons. Brain cells that fire both when an animal performs an action and when it watches someone else perform that same action. Here's the part that connects to language. The brain region in monkeys where these mirror neurons were found corresponds almost exactly to Broca's area in humans, the part of your brain responsible for producing speech. That overlap suggests language might have evolved out of a gesture and observation system, hand movements that other early humans could watch and copy, which only later got paired with vocal sounds. So maybe before our ancestors were talking, they were pointing, miming, gesturing, basically playing an extremely long-running, extremely high-stakes game of charades, and vocal sounds got layered on top of that system over time. Honestly, given how often charades goes badly at family game night, I have a lot of respect for whoever made that work as an actual survival strategy. So can linguists actually reconstruct any of this lost language? Sort of, but there's a hard limit. Using a method called the comparative method, linguists can take related modern languages, line up similar words, and mathematically work backward to reconstruct an extinct ancestor language. This is how we got Proto-Indo-European, the reconstructed ancestor of English, Hindi, Russian, Persian, and dozens of other languages, dating back roughly 6,000 years. But here's the wall every linguist hits. Go back further than about 8 to 10,000 years, and the method completely falls apart. Languages change too fast, sounds shift, words get replaced, and the trail goes cold. Which means the actual first language, the one spoken 100,000 plus years ago, is permanently out of reach using this method. We will never reconstruct it, not with better tools, not with more data. The information simply doesn't survive that long. So we're left with fragments, a throat bone that says they could speak, a gene shared with an extinct species, a baby babble sound that every culture turned into mama, a playground in Nicaragua that proved grammar might be something the brain invents on its own, a century-old French band that tells you how unsolvable this question has always felt, and a gesture-based theory hiding inside the same brain cells that let you understand this sentence right now. Put it together, and the most honest answer is, it probably wasn't one clean moment. No single human stood up one day and invented language like it was a startup pitch. It was almost certainly messy, layered, half gesture, half sound, built slowly, across hundreds of thousands of years, by creatures who just needed a better way to say, watch out, or follow me, or this fruit will kill you, don't eat it. And every time you have a full conversation without even thinking about how strange that is, you're running the end result of that entire, untraceable process. Every grammar rule you never had to learn on purpose. Every word that just feels natural. All of it sitting on top of a mystery nobody has ever fully solved, and maybe never will.